appreciate it. Next up, we have Jeff Powers from Occipital, who's going to be talking about inside the structure sensor.
Great, thank you. I guess I can just talk into this guy, so should be good. Thanks. So I would like to take a bit to tell you guys a little bit about the structure sensor and what it is, and how it was designed specifically, and how it interacts with augmented reality as well. So let me take it away. A few years ago, when we started working on structure sensor, we were really excited about augmented reality. And we started working on some augmented reality demos, and we hit issues that I think a lot of you are familiar with. Some of the issues, the maps that are created in SLAM-based augmented reality are typically very sparse. And so you only have maybe a few feature points or some edges or something to represent your model, but you didn't have a dense map of the world. So if you ever wanted to simulate physics or maybe do projection mapping, you didn't have a dense map of the world. Virtual objects were often also not scale correct unless you were using a marker of some kind that had scale embedded into the marker. And at the same time, if you were just tracking with a visible camera, you could have tracking robustness issues. And in fact, we still have that today. Even with all the sensors we have today, we still have tracking robustness issues. But what if we could make things better? And that was the question that we asked when we decided to build structure sensor. And specifically what we thought about is, what if we added a sensor like the Microsoft Kinect? The Microsoft Kinect was a 3D sensor at the time that wasn't a fit at all for mobile, but it had some very interesting data that could help alleviate, in fact, many of these problems. So what if you had this? Well, you wouldn't have sparse maps anymore because you could densely map the world quite easily. Virtual objects would actually be scale correct now because you can directly sense scale. And tracking can become more robust, especially if you have 30 frames per second of depth information. You can do this without 30 frames per second of depth information, but it certainly helps. You can track in pitch dark environments, for example. And so what if we had that? That's why we decided to go after this. And we looked around, and there were a number of cool hacks, some really awesome projects, people taking Kinects and attaching batteries and 18 cables and attaching it to a tablet and trying to do something. But there was no specific 3D sensor that was designed to work with mobile devices, and there was none that was designed to work, especially with the iPad, which was our initial target device. So we created the structure sensor. For those of you who haven't seen it before, this is it, and this is it on an iPad Air. So it adds 3D sensing to the iPad. It also works with other devices. So if you're interested in attaching it to an Android tablet or PC, Mac, whatever, you can totally do that as well. We launched it last year on Kickstarter. It was one of the top funded Kickstarter projects last year. And developers, we made this device for you. This was a device that allows you to start building applications for a world that will be here soon, a world that isn't quite here yet. For those of you who haven't seen it, again, I'm going to just run a quick reel just so you can see how it works. I'll give some narration because I don't have cool music. So it's a 3D sensor. It can sense range. You can see in these clips a few clips of the sensor working. It attaches to an iPad via a bracket with an aluminum latch. You can actually upgrade it and attach it to future devices as well without having to get a new sensor. It uses infrared structured light, much like the Kinect. In fact, it shares it's in the Kinect family because it actually uses a few of the same components. It has a SDK called Structure SDK that allows you to develop augmented reality games and 3D scanning and other practical applications based on this. It's for iOS primarily, but actually we have open source drivers for other platforms. And one of the things about it, if you notice from the video, is it has a pretty nice design, and we spent a lot of time on the design, and that's what I'm going to tell you guys about today, something that we haven't had a chance to really talk about yet. So lots of cool possibilities. You should totally check it out if you haven't already checked out the device. Like I mentioned, it has an SDK. There's sample code for 3D scanning, for SLAM, for augmented reality. We're going to have a Unity integration soon. If you guys are interested in low-level access to sensor raw data, we also provide really highly performant raw data access as well. So why iPad? We focused on iPad First, for a few reasons. It isn't like we only like the iPad and hate every other device. Actually, iPad is mostly a practical thing for developers. For developers, you can focus on getting the experience for your AR application right on one device. And that's a lot easier than getting it right on 20 devices or 100 devices. Because as many of you know, AR applications are difficult to make sure performance is good across many, many devices. And accessories and apps sell better. And so there was more of a market potential on iOS. And also, we didn't want to take the easy road. As it turns out, by supporting iOS, this device can also be used with any other platform. And why focus on design? So as a developer, you need users. You need people that can play with your stuff. And if you were relying on someone to run one of these crazy contraptions before running your application that uses 3D sensing, you're not going to have many users. You're only going to have your expert friends, and that's about it. And so we wanted to design a product that could be used by real people. And we also recognize that developers and early adopters are people too, and we appreciate good design. So let's jump into the design. First problem was size. Many of you have seen a Kinect or even the new Kinect, and it's a very large device. And as much as it was an inspiring device, it was way too large for mobile devices. And so we had to tackle the problem of size. And the way we did that was actually by using CNC'd high-grade anodized aluminum, because this material is very thermally emissive. We needed to shrink the thermal heat sink of the device as small as we could, and so we used a very high-grade aluminum. And we actually avoided using any plastic shell around the device. Allows us to keep the form factor smaller as well. So this is as small as we could get it using this new very nice type of aluminum. Also, data connection is a problem. If you use the structure sensor with an iPad, you need a Lightning connector. If you want to use it with certain Android tablets, you might want micro USB, or for a PC, maybe you want USB. So how do we accommodate all these options, but still have a device that's somewhat elegant? Maybe 7 cords coming out isn't very elegant. So what we did is we made an interchangeable cable. And you can see I have one here, the hacker cable. You can use this to attach to a PC or any of the device, or the Lightning cable for the iPad. Also has a right angle design so that you don't have any strain. Power consumption is another issue. If you're an iOS accessory developer, if you ever try to build hardware for iOS, you'll find out you can use about 0.3 watts, and that's about it. Sensors that were out on the market at the time used about 2.5 watts. And so many people concluded you can't build a 3D sensor accessory at this point in time. And so we found a way to solve that. And we did that by adding an integrated lithium polymer battery into the device. And since we have a 3D sensor with a certain disparity between a projector and a camera, we actually put the battery there. So this actually doesn't require any power from the iPad. Battery life was another issue. If we were to run this device at full tilt without any optimization, we would have only had an hour and a half of streaming time. And standby time is an even bigger issue. So what we did is we made a bunch of smart changes to the power architecture. One of the things that we did is we used the iPad's camera, and we didn't use a power-hungry internal camera, which was actually worse quality than the iPad. So we cut that out. We re-architected the power design, and we added a secondary standby microcontroller. And what does that do for us? Well, instead of having 8 hours of standby, which means the battery would be dead if you kept this plugged in all day, you actually have basically unlimited standby, and you have 4 hours of active depth streaming. And so this thing can't quite outlive the iPad, but you never have any issues running out of battery life. Another issue is tablet upgrades. I mean, people don't want to buy sensors and tablets and, new sensors for new tablets, and, this would just go crazy, or buy a new tablet every year just to get the sensor, something like this. So we made the decision to actually have upgradable latch-on brackets. And what this means is that someone can buy a sensor once and upgrade it from the iPad Air to the next generation iPad and take advantage of all the new cool features in the iPad. We also enhanced the optical design. We inherited some components from PrimeSense when we built this device, but we actually took it one step further. We do very precise infrared camera calibration, and we were able to achieve better accuracy than any previous device built on similar components. So putting it all together, we spent a lot of time on this design, and it was a really fun process over the course of 2 years creating this device. And I hope you guys will appreciate the design on it. and I'd love to show you a quick video of what we were showing here at the conference. So check this out. In this demo, what we do is we scan in part of the world in a few seconds, and then once we're done, we can start playing a game at real-time 30 frames per second in the real world. So we actually made these styrofoam ramps so that our little virtual character here could skate up and down them. So check that out. And there's occlusion with the real-world objects, as you can see. You can go inside, be blocked by things. And this demo is actually built on top of Unity, so someone who has a Unity experience can put together a game in a matter of hours. So this is in the Structure SDK. So check that out. Unfortunately, I hope a lot of you guys got to check it out at our booth earlier. So that has been inside the structure sensor. That's the design, and you can check out more at structure.io. And I'd love to take a question or two. Yeah.
So, yeah, definitely a round of applause. And real quick, before you ask that question, I will ask Matt, if you don't mind, go ahead and jump up. And then for those of you that are over there are plenty of seats over here if you want to move on over. But go ahead with your question.
It was so awesome that PrimeSense was an independent company able to serve robotics manufacturers and small companies looking to innovate. Yeah. I know it's hard to say anything, but what's the future? When you look at the technologies that you could look at in the future, what excites you about the things that are happening from silicon providers and others that can enable your next generation solutions?
Yeah. So, let me just use this. So the question is, what next? If we don't use PrimeSense technology in the future, what do we use next? I think there's a lot of interesting things out there. I think there's interesting things in time of flight. I think it's getting a lot better. I think structured light is still better for what we're doing. And so as you look towards our second generation, we'll find it more natural to use structured light again. But we're also really excited about some of the time of flight companies like Soft Kinetic and others. And so it's kind of neck and neck right now to see where we're going to go next. And I think that software can overcome some of the issues of the sensing technologies. But there's a lot of potential, and I think there's also a lot of opportunity now with PrimeSense gone, and so there's opportunity for others to come into the game. So we're excited, and a key thing about our design is almost the entire design is actually something we're going to retain for the future. We're just going to drop in different optical components, so we'll actually be able to get to our second generation much faster. But we have no issues with supply on the first generation, and so people can buy them as much as they want, and I guarantee. Unless incredible things happen, we won't run out. So grab a structure sensor. Yeah, one more question?
Yes, you mentioned that the demo, I didn't get a chance to stop by it, but it's very cool. I got
Sweet.
to look at everything. That demo was built partially in Unity, but you said a little bit earlier that there's not a full-on Unity package out yet. What's the...
Yeah, so the question is, the demo that I showed, is that's sort of in Unity, but what's the status on it? So when we launched our Kickstarter campaign, we showed a few demos. One of them was a game of this sort, and we're in the middle of delivering all those. And so that demo that you saw will be a Unity package in the very near future. First for all the Kickstarter backers, and then for all the people that are pre-ordering sensors today and general availability soon. So it'll be out really soon. Cool. Thanks. Oh, I'm out of time, right? Okay, sorry. Find me after if you have other questions. Thanks. And Matt.